Hi, I'm Ems, aka on Deck and Wings. In this video I will be painting up some small Fallout themed miniature pieces. Please do like, comment and subscribe, it all helps my small channel out. So I 3D printed up a bunch of small Fallout related pieces. I did do this in black resin, so it doesn't actually show up too well on the camera, but I will adjust this in a minute. I used this Conjure standard 8K resin. I completely forgot I had this. I think I won it in the competition, so I thought I'd use it up. I've worked with Conjure before. I really like the grey resin as well. If you are into your 3D printing, it's worth entering different competitions. I've entered quite a few and won resin before. Or if you're into it and you make stuff like I do, like blogs and things, it's worth contacting some companies, especially smaller ones, to see if you can get some review copies. So here are all the prints, and what I've done is I've put some white over the top of them so they stand out a bit more on the camera. So these are a mix of files, official ones from Wardollies, the guys who do the Fallout tabletop game, and some other files I found online. So Wardollies do a bunch of different official files with different things on, like shelving units, the computers, and even like bobbleheads and things like that, and they're really awesome. I'll put the link in the description below to the official website where you can grab some of these. This shelving unit is interchangeable, so you can have larger shelves on it, and there's different shelving as well on it with different bits and pieces you'd find from the video games. And what I've got as well here is a desk with one of the computers on. This is an official file. However, this Nuka-Cola thing at the side isn't. It's made by a guy called BlueKnight, and he's over on Thingiverse, and I'll pop his link in the description below as well. He makes a lot of official like fan-made projects and a lot of things from the original Fallouts if you're a fan of them. He's even done like a full thing of Shady Towns, which is one of the main places in Fallout 1. I love anything like this, it just adds a lot of character to your settings. What I've also done as well is I've printed some other terminals. Fortunately, I could have printed these better. I printed these with the screen facing downwards. I was just rushing to get these done. But it could just add to the post-apocalyptic setting, I guess. It makes it look like the screens are a bit cracked. And I also have these wall terminals as well. These came out really nicely. These came out a lot better. So I'm going to paint up a few of those as well. I also have a couple more of those Nuka-Cola crates. So there are some blank ones like this, and there's ones like on the desk with a few caps on them and some Nuka-Cola bottles. And then there's some open ones with some Nuka-Cola bottles in as well. So this just adds a lot of detail to your setting or your diorama. Or you could even glue these to some bases. I also printed out this Nuka-Cola shelving. It kind of looks like something from a caravan, and it has like different things from the game like Blanco mac and cheese. I won't be painting this up today in this video, but I will be painting this up on Instagram, so you can check it out on there. And lastly, I have this guy, this skeleton with a ham radio. I've seen a few of these files knocking around on Thingiverse. I think they're all from the same guy. And it's got like these skeletons in different positions, like on sofas and things like that. So they're really cool and add a lot to the setting. I will be using these new brushes that I won in a competition. Yes, like I said, enter as many competitions as you can online. Just double check that they're legitimate. Anyway, these are from Chronicle RPG. And these are like a set of dry brushes, but these are really cool because you have like your generic kind of big round ones, but then there's some like edged ones and some flatter ones. It's a really good set. You do get a lot of brushes in this. Like I said, I won these. I'm not sponsored by them, so I'll be trying them out in this video, and maybe I'll do a longer review on them in the future, but these look great, and yeah, I'm gonna have some fun with these. Finally getting around to paint these up after all that waffle. You know me, I like to waffle on. Anyway, I'm using Two Thin Coats paints mainly. I'm using Two Thin Coats Platinum here. It's a nice silver sheen to it, and I'm dry brushing this over the top with those nice brushes. I'll be mainly using my Two Thin Coats paints here because I have like a bunch of them and I don't use them enough. I actually was sent this set of Two Thin Coats paints. I'll put the link in the description below where I've done a previous review on them. They're quite nice paints. I'm just grabbing an Aries flesh and a gizmo fur here. These are like different variations of like brown and beiges. And I'm just smushing this on here, not thinking about it too much. Just going for all the different things on the shelving unit. There's quite a lot of different bits. And then I've grabbed a Hellspawn red. This is a really bright, vibrant colour. I'm cheating a bit here. I've just grabbed a random brush which I had to smush it on. There's a heck of a lot of detail on these shelves. These shelves come with all this stuff already stuck on it, so you don't need to worry about putting them on afterwards. Moving on here, I've got a gung-ho green and a troll snot green. I do think some of the coloured names with two thin coats are quite hilarious. I do kind of prefer, like with Pro Acrylic, how they just have kind of straightforward names, but I guess there's some whimsy to that. So there is a typewriter here and some ammo crates, and I'm not being too restrictive with the colours, I'm just roughly going off what they look like on one of the games. As you might know, the way I paint, I'm not overly strict with colours and following recipes, I just try and interpret them the best I can. And the thing with Fallout is there's different variations depending on the game you play, so there's different variations on certain items and colours. And I guess that's obviously because of different developers, but you can chop that down to like headcanon, you know, different areas where the game might be set. Rust might have affected it differently, there might be different production in that area and such forth. And I'm just grabbing a Vallejo Oxide wash here and a Citadel Wormwoods contrast paint I'm thinning down. So these are going to be like some grimy washes over the top. What I do enjoy about the Fallout universe is there's so much lore established, but at the same time there's a lot of wiggle room to have your own interpretations and create your own storylines, which is something I always enjoy doing. I've talked about this before, but I definitely feel like the imagination and like headcanon has gone slightly from sci-fi and fantasy. I see this a lot in the Warhammer, especially Warhammer 40,000 universes, where I kind of feel like people take things too literally and things have to be a very specific way, and then people don't really paint their own factions or create their own storylines anymore the same. Well, I don't really see it as like newer players do this, they don't seem to do that the same. I've got a ghoul green here. This has like a nice oxide green blue colour to it, and I think this could add a lot to the rust and create some more pops of colour. Speaking of people having less imagination with fantasy now, I've heard this term, the death of media literacy. It's this idea that people are less aware of media and they don't understand like allegory and satire the same, and they take things a bit too literally. And it also moves on to this idea as well that there's kind of a lack of empathy and understanding, that people don't have the same when it comes to media. I definitely think this is reflected a lot in the works of science fiction, because they tend to have a lot of ideas about dystopian futures and rebellion and things like that. With sci-fi and post-apocalyptic settings becoming more popular, I think the more general masses are being aware of those settings. And in those settings we have a lot of evil characters within that, albeit complicated people. Moving on to Argonaut skin, and I'm going to be using this on the desk, so this is a lovely brown colour. Once again, I'm not going to be super accurate with the colours. Once we get the washes down, it won't matter too much, but I'm just having some fun with this. And I really like these Chronicle RPG brushes. I've got them in the flat brushes here. I really like them, they're soft but they have a spring to them, and I think these are synthetic. I do actually say I enjoy these more than my Artist Opus ones. There's a good different range of brushes within them, and I don't feel like there's any kind of stray hairs or anything like that. They're really smooth and nice. I mean, it's up to personal taste. I do like a lot of the brushes I own anyway. But these are a really nice set, and I like the fact that there's a lot of different shapes to them. So you have your generic rounder dry brushes, but then you have some smaller brushes like these. The set also comes with two smaller detail brushes as well, which I think is great. Going back to what I said about dystopian settings though, I think the people take these settings too literally, and they identify with these not so great characters, you know, like Homelander and the boys, and even like the Space Marines in 40k. You know, I think Space Marines are cool, but then there are the people now I see who take it way too literally and don't understand, you know, the satirical side of Warhammer, and they like always worship the Emperor and get really weirdly into that, and it's a bit strange. It's almost a bit fetish-like. Satire is this idea as well where you're making fun of, so people think it's ha-ha funny, but satire is like a a more deeper embedded meaning, where it's a more exaggerated version of events which could happen or are happening around you. And that's where sci-fi and like horror and fantasy have always been great secret allegories or open secret allegories for things going on in the world or what have happened or could happen. It was funny when the Fallout TV show came out how there was people commenting on, oh, this is nothing like the games, they've changed it, they made it too political and all this crap. And Fallout has always been a very political game. It's very anti-capitalist and a very anti-American corporations and things like that. And I'm just doing the computer screen here with cobalt grey. Also, with media literacy, I think it's not just an idea of people not understanding or interpreting things, it's also people not seeing that there is older media which has modern quote-unquote concepts in it. You know, there's older things with women in it and minorities. When you look at movies like Dawn of the Dead, there's always been like a black cast in the Dead movies, and like Aliens had a woman protagonist and that had black characters in. I don't understand like how dense people are, you know. There's always been older people in TV shows and such. I've got one of the Chronicle RPG detail brushes here. I think these are more like a proper brush rather than a dry brush. These are nice, they've got a nice tip to them. And I'm just putting white paint over this. This is just a generic white paint, and I'm going to have this so the screen glows. And to rant even further, it does annoy me how people judge things without actually watching it themselves now. They read the reviews online and have their mind made up for them. So like the biggest favourite YouTuber reviews a film and oh, they hate it, therefore I must hate it too. I've got a green glaze here, and I'm going to put this over the screen to make it look like it's glowing, as well as around the desk. And this will contrast nicely with the Nuka-Cola box. I do really like that Two Thin Coats has a range of glazes. I'm not a huge fan though of things being constantly rebooted. I sometimes think it's pointless, and it's like the women-only Ghostbusters movie. I thought that was crap, not because it was the women in it, I just felt it was pointless. It's the same with other things. I just feel like, you know, why don't you just make a new storyline? I do kind of worry for this new younger generation in a way, because in some ways with lockdown as well, everyone became more insular and online, and then you do get a lot of these snake oil men that come online and kind of manipulate younger people. They prey on a lot of people's insecurities, and obviously a lot of political people back that too, which I don't like. I just wish people would have more critical thinking outside of, I don't like this thing because, you know, there's women and minorities in it. I know there's obviously more complicated factors involved. Like I said, there's a lot of like more insecure people and isolated people, so they're taken more in by these more hateful and more one-dimensional ideas of thinking and manipulated by them to these big internet guys to make more money off them. And I do think in some ways like younger working class, like white guys maybe feel a bit more insecure because there's obviously more issues at play, like economic issues and things like that. You know, men are traditionally seen as these people who provide for families, but now there's, you know, less jobs, maybe less opportunities in society in general in terms of work, and it's easier to kind of blame minority people who have a little bit more of a voice now and a more representation in the media. And it's easy to feel like you're being taken away and your rights are being taken away as well at the same time. I mean, there are like more critical issues. Like I said, it's not just the straightforward thing. There's more issues in society at play, and I think it's harmful to ignore them, but at the same time I don't like that people are projecting them so much and using like the term woke and all this stuff to just spew hatred for, you know, your own kind of personal insecurities. And I think critical thinking is lost in that way. And now this is the computer screen and the desk done. I definitely think this is my favourite piece. It has a lot of colour to it and character. So moving on to the skeletal guy with the ham radio. This is a really cool piece. And I've got one of these smaller dry brushes here. And again, I really like these brushes. It's a really cool set. And I'm using the Craven Yellow. So this is a really light yellow colour. I'm going to put this over the skeleton, so it looks a bit more aged and a bit more like radiated, I guess. I know I've been a bit more critical and introspective within this video, but it's something that's kind of irked me for the past couple of years, how I'm seeing a lot more hateful comments online and a lot of people not really understanding, you know, the allegory and things. And I know people are annoyed and justified in certain ways, but in other ways it just feels really ignorant, and it's just ignoring how many, you know, things are represented in science fiction and such, and how many great movies have come out over the years which have had inclusive characters in it. I don't know, some studios and things kind of go over the top with that, you know, where I feel like they force storylines to some extent, but that's not to blame for the minority of people within that show. I've seen it quite often where like gay characters are brought into TV shows and then they're quickly killed off afterwards. I saw that a lot in The Walking Dead. So I'm just painting up the desk here. And there's a lot of really nice textures on this model, and it's great for adding dry brushing and washes. It really makes it pop with very few steps. I just really hate when they do token characters with badly written storylines, and even sometimes that's all you can get for representation. But I think, you know, storylines can be done a lot better, like in The Last of Us with Bill. I think that was a great storyline, and that character was in the original games like a decade ago, and people still kicked up a fuss about that. So like I said, sometimes it's not just people blaming bad writing, there is like undertones of other more hateful things going on. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with pointing something out for having bad writing. I think you have to be, you know, specific on why you don't like something. And at the end of the day, if you don't like something, don't watch it. It's the same with like the video nasties when they banned those. It was just fake bloods and people kicked up a fuss. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Same with Mary Whitehouse. And I'm just using Cobalt Grey here. Well, the reason I've always enjoyed horror and sci-fi and reading and things is it's not just the pure escapism, but it's also understanding how other people are and their lives. Just a couple more bits and pieces on this guy. So I've got Overlord Brass here. The metallics from Toothing Coats are quite a nice range. I still think Dirt Star Molten Metals are my favourite overall, but they've got some nice metallics in this range. I've got a sepia tone here, washing this over the skeleton just to have some variations. Don't get me wrong, I love dystopian settings and I find characters interesting, complicated ones like Negan, but you're not really supposed to want to be these characters. You're supposed to like understand them and understand they're like a symptom of a society, and sometimes they can change. And just the last thing, you know, the taboo topic about women custodies. I find that such a silly thing, and I find it's been blown out of proportion so much, especially by these like rage baiting YouTubers and people who aren't really into the hobby that much anyway. I just feel like this very touristy thing of people who know the law and, like I said, take it too literally and don't really understand. There's been a lot of retconning over the years anyway, and this isn't a major change in my opinion. Maybe they could have introduced it a little bit better, but overall I think it's just a silly argument in my opinion. It doesn't affect your hobby. So I painted up some screens off camera, just finished off some of the wall mounted ones and some of the Nuka-Cola crates. I really had a fun time painting these up. I love greebly stuff, you can just paint them up without thinking about them too much. And these all came out really great. I'll try my best to link all of these in the description below. As always, thank you for watching. If you want to help support my channel, there's links in the description below and you can look at my social media. As always, remember to enjoy your hobbies for yourself, respect the people who enjoy them in their own ways, and at the end of the day, we're just Wardollies. I'll see you in the next one.